Hello, and welcome to Movie Mecca, you bitches. I am His Holiness, the Archbishop Cecil B. DeMillionaire, and I am here to bless you with some wisdom today. So listen up, you stinking nerds, you're about to get jade. Now, recently in the world, there was some controversy due to a small but, to some folks, very significant change made to a brief scene, a brief moment of a scene in the Shout Factory release of the motion picture Riddick from 2013. Let me get this thing open. I'm using a belt buckle to open this beer because I had to be fancy and get bottles this week. What can I tell you? Belt buckles don't work too well. Just popped a belt buckle off an old belt that I threw away and thought I'd use it to open beers, but apparently not. Cheers of the season. I got an old Fezziwig here. The t-shirt might say Diet Coke, but my breath says DUI. You know what I'm saying? Booyah. All right, so I'm going to jump right in. I find it confusing that we have a movie called The Chronicles of Riddick, and then we have another movie that is purportedly a sequel to that film that is simply called Riddick. I've seen neither film. I've never seen Chronicles of Riddick, and I haven't seen Riddick either. But both films kind of look stupid and unenjoyable to me, and that's why I haven't. I'm sorry if you're watching this and you enjoy the Riddick films. I've seen Pitch Black. I saw that in the theaters when it was brand new, but I haven't seen any other Riddick film. So I understand and appreciate that there are people out there who do like Riddick and who were justifiably, in my opinion, a little upset at a recent edit that was noticed in the 4K release of Riddick from Shout Factory. And there are many other videos that describe in detail the Shout Factory Riddick controversy. So I am going to not at all go into any length about the specifics of that instance. I trust that you are already familiar with what has happened, with what has gone down. I really only consider the current, like that booty squeeze edit, as a jumping off point to a broader discussion that I want to have today about post-hoc censorship in film. That's fucking Latin, so you're going to have to go Google that shit, okay, if you don't speak at least a little bit of Latin. The short story, according to Shout Factory, is that during the restoration and or 4K scan of Riddick, when they were getting ready to put it out on a 4K disc for you to buy, the director of that film, David Twohy, I'm not sure how to say that name. It looks like two and then he at the end. So I'm going to say Twohy. David Twohy. I should have looked it up, right? I mean, like, I'm on this video speaking Latin. I speak French in other videos, throwing out French words like I'm actually fucking smart and I didn't look up this asshole's name. Anyway, David Twohy, who also directed all the Riddick films, by the way. He's not, this wasn't his like first foray into Riddick. This is the auteur who has given us the entire Riddick catalog of films that I have completely fucking ignored. Apparently, this Toohey scumbag removed a shot of Riddick, played by Vin Diesel, squeezing Katie Sackhoff's butt with his hand. He squeezed it, put his hand on her booty, and he squeezed that booty. And apparently, it was replaced with an awkwardly timed fade to the next scene. This particular instance, again, is not the point of this video. It's really just kind of a way to get the conversation started because it's just a recent example, yeah, of a phenomenon that traces back well before the existence of films, even photography. I mean, motherfuckers been burning books for a long ass motherfucking time. You know what I'm saying? Presumably, the shot of Riddick squeezing Katie Sackhoff's booty was removed because Toohey decided that it was no longer okay for Riddick's character to behave in such a way. I haven't seen the film, but if Riddick and Sackhoff's character weren't already engaged in a mutually consensual, amorous relationship, then Riddick's touching Sackhoff's sweet backside might be viewed negatively in current day as a form of sexual harassment or even sexual assault. thanks to the enlightenment that many of us have experienced since the dark and sexist days of 2013 when Riddick was first released, many of us now recognize the hallmark signs of misogynistic rape culture, such as a male character, Riddick, putting his rapey hands on a strong female character as a means of demeaning her and degrading her and undermining her position of authority within the film, as if to remind her that despite her courage and her heroism, her ultimate value is in her capacity to provide sexual pleasure to our male hero, and secondarily, that her true human value is her potential for breeding. I made all that shit up right now. It's actually too easy to make this shit up. Like you get like what half a college degree and you could just fucking spout this shit. I could teach the fucking course. I took one fucking semester of sociology. One fucking semester, and then I can write whole paragraphs like that about how, Katie Sackhoff's character is supposed to be this fucking badass girl boss lady, and he squeezes her butt as if to remind her of what her place is. That's a valid reading of a film that I've never even fucking seen. You see how fucking easy this shit is? I can do this shit with my fucking eyes closed because I didn't watch the fucking movie. So I'm just gonna say, go to college and you can fucking make shit up too. Go dogs, right? All you need to do is owe the federal government $30,000 for an education, and you can fucking make up bullshit for 86 viewers on fucking YouTube as well. This is the pinnacle of success. Let me tell you that, people. At any rate, it is likely that he removed the butt squeeze due to how it might be perceived. Uh, Refer to my sarcastic statement of 10 seconds ago. There are people out there who might legitimately make such a statement that his grabbing of her butt was not okay and that it has negative effects on feminist character, you know? So he's be thinking like bitches be wilding, and he's going to get crucified by the modern day sensibilities, and that the butt squeeze isn't a big or crucial moment in the film. It's not a important point of the plot. He must have thought that leaving the scene in would pose a greater potential harm to Riddick's reception, and as well as his reputation as a director, than it would have done to remove it. So he's thinking it's more harm to leave it in than it is to take it out, because when people see the butt squeeze, they're going to think I'm fucking Harvey Weinstein. So, I mean, he might have been right. But of course, as you know, I don't need to tell you, people notice right away. Motherfuckers notice. Boom, the thing hadn't even been out for a day. People take to the internet and they say, wait a minute. Wait a minute. I bought this whole fucking $36 4K from Scream Factory just because I wanted that close-up shot of Vin Diesel squeezing that sweet, sweet booty. And they took that shit out. Want my money back. Look, people are understandably upset about a change like this. Small as it might be, it's a small thing, but fans expect that the films they love will not be altered. I think that's an important statement that I'd like to make in this video. Amongst all of my crazy ramblings and bullshit, that's an important thing that I would like for folks to take away from this video, please. In recent years, there are many examples of post-hoc alterations made to films. I'm going to name a few off the top of my head right now, but this is by no means even remotely exhaustive list. This is like 1% of 1%. Digital technology has made it so much easier to make alterations to completed films, even many years after their debut. I could just cut this shit on my Mac and insert whatever I want here for like 2 hours and then cut right back to this shit. It'd be easy. Steven Spielberg removed the guns that some cops were holding, like one of them had a shotgun, and he inserted walkie-talkies. So it's like instead of holding a shotgun like this, he's like holding a really large walkie-talkie like this instead of his fucking 12 gauge. That was in the 20th anniversary DVD release of the film E.T. the Extraterrestrial. That motherfucker was trying to phone home on his walkie-talkie. I guess he decided the walkie-talkies were thematically more appropriate than shotguns, since the movie's about fucking phoning home and shit. George Lucas changed A New Hope to make Greedo shoot first. I don't know why I didn't lead with that example. That is like the fucking example. It's probably the most infamous example, probably the most hated post hoc film alteration in human history. I know we're only going back 100 years, but it's still an accurate thing to say. Greedo shooting first? I don't even like Star Wars, and I fucking hate that change. Speaking of George Lucas, he's done a bunch of that type of shit. He put Hayden Christensen in at the end of The Return of the Jedi. This fucking guy, George Lucas, will absolutely shit in your mouth and call it a Sunday. The N word was removed from The French Connection. Gene Hackman's character said the N word, and they digitally removed that in recent streams of The French Connection. I don't know if you've watched that on streaming soon. I heard a little rumor today that it was going to be coming out on 4K next year. That doesn't surprise me one bit, but now we got to know, is Gene Hackman's character going to say the N word in The French Connection, or are we going to get an altered version of this? Disney changed some words in Aladdin's opening song because Arab anti-discrimination groups were pissed. I'll give them credit. They were pissed about it in 1993. So it didn't take them long to change the lyrics of that song. I think they changed it for the very first home video release. But hey, there's an example of unadvertised change that they made between the theatrical release and the home video release that they hoped you wouldn't notice. And they made because they were feeling pressure, not because it artistically benefited the film. And man, I'm going to yell more about that in a second. So fucking hang on to your butts. In all home video releases of Wayne's World, they edited the audio so that Wayne is not playing Stairway to Heaven when he goes guitar shopping, which either makes the joke completely unintelligible. I mean, it either completely removes the rug from the joke, or you might look at it as it actually makes the joke work even better because it's like no stairway denied, right? In a meta way. I mean, he's looking at the camera as he delivers that line. So in a really meta way, it might be like, yeah, for real, no stairway. You can't have it in the movie at all. You can't even play the opening bars, which I think is completely fucking ludicrous. Wayne can't play the first like second and a half of fucking Stairway to Heaven without paying fucking money out of their ass? Get the fuck out of here. And I like Led Zeppelin an awful lot. The OG Blade Runner was edited to remove a studio mandated voiceover that was put in, for the theatrical release. Ridley Scott yeeted that voiceover. Ridley Scott also reworked the original ending, restore his original idea for that. There's a new edit of Godfather 3 that's also been retitled. They changed the whole name of the fucking movie. They now call it Godfather Coda, The Death of Michael Corleone, or some other such mouthful of fucking nonsense. I miss when they just called sequels Part 2 and Part 3 and shit. Riddick is a great example of why this shit is convoluted and confusing. Like the Chronicles of Riddick and then Riddick, and I gotta fucking get on Wikipedia and see which one came out first to fucking decide what order to watch them in. Get the fuck out of here. Call it Part 1, call it Part 2, call it Part 3. That way I don't gotta fucking, I shouldn't have to Google this shit and fucking do research just to decide what order to watch these stupid fucking movies in. Stupid fucking Vin Diesel fight some stupid fucking aliens. And I gotta fucking go online and do some research. It's stupid. I'm gonna try not to lose my shit about that here, actually, just for the sake of time. I felt that rant coming. I felt it bubble up, right? I swallowed it back down, just like one of those vomit burps. I got that back in me. Let's move on amicably. Those are just a handful of examples. That's just like kind of the first, I don't know, 6 examples or whatever that came to my head. But there are vastly more changes to films between their theatrical release and broadcast TV or their home video release. There are so many examples. I mean, you can go online and you can find so many people that give examples of stuff. Like the Goonies had a deleted scene that was inserted for TV broadcasts many years ago. So fuckers who grew up watching it on TV were mystified when it was missing from the DVD release that they bought as adults. So that's kind of like a reverse thing, right? Like, you watch a movie on TV a fuck ton, and you don't realize because you're 8 that you're getting a version that has been adulterated from the theatrical version. And then when DVD finally becomes a thing and it's 2002 and you go buy your first copy of The Goonies and you watch it and you're like, wait a second, it's missing a fucking scene that I grew up watching. I watch it fucking every Saturday on TNT, a fucking taped it on a VHS. I watched it every day for a whole fucking summer. Every single fucking day of summer vacation. In fourth grade, I watched that fucking movie. There you go. I don't know. I feel like I had a fucking stroke when I watched it in 2003, and I'm like, where's the fucking scene that I remember? Is this a Mandela effect? This is definitely a Mandela effect. Then I went full conspiracy theorist and started doing mushrooms. What do you want from me? Feel free to comment down below, actually, on any instances of post-hoc film alterations that may have slipped my mind that I neglected to mention here. Feel free to educate me, all right? There's probably dozens of instances that I don't even fucking know about yet because I don't know everything, much as I like to pretend I do. And that's not even mentioning films that exist in different versions over the years as copies are lost and found, like Fritz Lang's Metropolis. I think that was like 1923 that originally was like released theatrically, put upon the world. And obviously, we've been dealing with various incomplete cuts of that for the last several decades. So, just from the examples I mentioned, it becomes clear that there are a few reasons why a movie might undergo post hoc changes. First, the director is making changes to the film to restore it to his or her original vision. Ridley Scott didn't want a happy ending and a voiceover in Blade Runner, so when he got the opportunity, he took them out, right? By and large, audiences tend to be okay with changes to a movie when those changes align with what the director originally intended. We fans seem to appreciate when a director has a chance to realize their original creative intention, especially when we like that director. We like Ridley Scott for the most part. We like Blade Runner a lot. So getting his vision in the late 90s or whenever that was finally published. I mean, that was kind of cool. The second reason that changes are made to a film is when parts of the film are lost or found. This is especially the case with older films. I mentioned Metropolis, where digitization, cloud internet shit, that shit didn't exist way back when. In 1923, when Metropolis came out, they had one option, right? Many older films from the early decades of film history, they're just gone. Fires, especially, have damaged film elements over the years and will always be limited by the materials that exist for those early films, the hard copies, because that's really all they are. There was no fucking digital copy in a cloud somewhere. It was just a hard copy. And in most cases, there were many hard copies, but when an archive goes up in flames, sorry, Charlie, Metropolis is gone, motherfucker. You better hope they find a copy of it on 16 millimeter in fucking Brazil somewhere. I don't know, France or some shit. Anyway, when the originals get lost or destroyed, you fall back on prints. If no prints exist, then, movie's lost, or maybe it's partially lost like Metropolis was. It's still relevant to my current point. I mentioned Metropolis. This is a film that is just notorious for having been missing some elements, but a lot of it was still extant. So, you could watch Metropolis, but chunks were missing. I also mentioned Metropolis because if you go back and read about it, in recent years, I think as recently as like 2014 or something like that, they have found some of those missing elements and they've been able to reinsert those into the film. So versions of Metropolis that you watch now in current day, 2024, 2025, are actually more complete than the first time I watched Metropolis in film school in 2002. That's kind of cool, all right? And that's a change, a post hoc change or alteration made to a film. Again, we tend to be very appreciative of these changes. The idea that you can watch a movie and it's incomplete, and 20 years later, they will have found more of the movie and reinserted it, and you have an even more complete version of the film. I think most people who have appreciation for film and film history, we get jazzed by that kind of thing. So that is an okay post hoc alteration, in my opinion. This is probably the most appreciated form of post hoc alteration because we're essentially getting more of what we want, which is the complete, perfect, fully every single frame is there version of Fritz Lang's vision for Metropolis, right? And we may not ever get there, but the closer we can get, the better for all of us who appreciate film history. Now, the final reason, the third and final reason, some films are changed because as time goes by, social mores and attitudes shift. Some shit was more accepted in the past And then it becomes forbidden in current day as we come to accept how offensive previous practices may have been. Blackface is a great example, which is not to say that blackface is great. It is to say that it's an example of something that is clearly offensive. Sony recently released a box set of Frank Capra's films at Columbia, which is notably missing the 1928 film, The Matinee Idol. It seems that Sony seriously considered including The Matinee Idol in their Frank Capra box set. They went so far as to record a commentary track for the release. So that's how we know that they were pretty close to putting this in there. But the rumor that I've partaken of online is that the Matinee Idol was left out of the Frank Capra box set because the main character of the Matinee Idol is a blackface performer. And at the end of the day, Sony legal team and higher ups, the board of investors and such, they decided they didn't want to touch that in today's day and age, right? It was something that Columbia got away with in 1928 when the Matinee Idol came out. But, you know, fast forward almost 100 years, and that shit is not popular, okay? I'm not saying blackface was acceptable in 1928. I'm saying that people did accept it in 1928. Like it was probably offensive as fuck to black folks back then, but, you know, Columbia was all right putting it out in 1928. And they don't want to touch the shit in 2024. So that's an example of people just saying, hey, I ain't touching it. I mentioned that the guns were removed from ET, presumably because ET is a family movie and kids like ET. 8-year-olds are watching ET and guns kill people, right? If you put a gun in ET, then the 8-year-old that's watching ET today is going to turn into the school shooter of 4 years from now. You know what I'm saying? We got to be careful, put the walkie-talkies in, because if the kids see the fucking guns, what do you know? Next thing you know, they're fucking right-wing gun nuts and they're just gonna fucking go shoot up the post office, whatever the fuck they're gonna do. This third flavor of post-hoc censorship is really the most contentious to film fans. And this is the bucket that the butt squeeze falls into, that Riddick butt squeeze. That after some contemplation of this issue, I conclude that my position is thus. And you can see if you agree with me. You know, maybe that's the fun of this video, is you get to decide whether or not I'm a complete fucking asshole and an idiot, or maybe what's worse is I start making some sense. And then you got to think, fuck me, what did I do that fucking Cecil B. DeMillionaire is making sense these days? That's not good. In general, I think a director is at liberty to make changes and revisions to their own artwork. Again, if the movie is theirs, it's theirs. It's their statement, their name is upon it. I do think that it is acceptable for them to make changes that, in their mind at least, improve the film, as long as the original work remains available. That is an important caveat. Unlike Star Wars, okay? Releases of films that include a director's cut as well as the original theatrical cut of a film, like many releases of Blade Runner have done. Many releases of Blade Runner are a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Give us the director's cut, the director's final cut, the director's extended cut. Let the director meddle, let him cook, but give me the original theatrical version as well. This position allows for directors to pursue an original vision that was not available to them when a movie was first released. Maybe technology's improved, and it also allows the audience to experience that director's vision, but it also gives us the option of watching whichever version we prefer. You know, maybe you have some nostalgia for that weird TV broadcast version of the Goonies. If you've got both versions on your disc or on 2 discs, then it's up to you which version that you want to watch. You're the consumer paying fucking 40. Don't even get me started on how expensive some of these 4Ks are getting. For a single movie, that they'll start throwing in, Jesus Christ, Requiem for a Dream is going to come with a replica double dong after fucking Texas Chainsaw Massacre came with a fake fucking chainsaw. This is fucking bullshit, and I will not stand for it. Anyway, Star Wars is an example of this done wrong. I mentioned that a second ago. For some reason, It might be some contractual agreement with George Lucas himself. Disney won't do the smart thing and just like re-release the original version of the original Star Wars alongside the new versions. Like, imagine how many $65 steelbooks you could sell then, you greedy mouse fucks. Two, this is the second part of my position. The restoration of films from new discoveries, as is the case with Metropolis, are beneficial, and overall, we should be celebrating that shit. So my opinion is that when they find in some rundown museum in Brazil, I think it was Brazil of all places, that they found a print of Metropolis like 10 years or so ago. Don't quote me on that. I'm going off the top of my head, but we should be celebrating when that type of thing happens. It's a rare event. That is some fucking cool shit. When it happens, we should do some backflips. You know what I'm saying? We should do a fucking backflip into the pool outside of my house. So feel free to come over next time they discover another 18 frames of fucking Metropolis. We'll throw a pool party and I'll order pizza. Changes to a film that are made for the purpose of conforming with modern sensibilities is wrong. That's the last part of my position. Changing a movie that came out years ago, maybe semi-recently, like Riddick in 2013, maybe longer ago, like 1928 with the Matinee Idol. I think it's wrong, unless original unchanged versions are also offered. If you want to clean something up for television, by all means, remove all the swears and take out the titties. I want to be able to buy a titty disc. Give me the disc with the titties on it. Now I'm saying, that's how passionate I am. I'm slapping the fucking microphone. I want the disc with the F-bombs and the titties on it, please. When I pay $70 fucking dollars for a fucking one movie on 4K. Thanks a lot, Synapse. Fuckers got me. As long as you're providing the original, uncut, unedited versions, I'm okay. But with that third kind of post-hoc censorship, the whole point is to make sure nobody ever saw the butt squeeze, right? Because you want people to forget that your main character is apparently fucking the buff, bald, ripped Harvey Weinstein, and he's just grabbing people's genitals all over the place, left and right. Men, women, and children, beware, because fucking Riddick is gonna fly to your galaxy. He's gonna slide two fingers down the crack of your ass. He's gonna fucking make you smell him, make your husband smell him. That's nasty. Anyway, I'm a big boy, okay? I'm an adult. I got fucking adult white beard hair, okay? So I could buy anything the fuck I want. Buy drugs, motherfucker. FBI guy, calm down. Anyway, I can decide if a film or a book or an album or a stand-up comedy special is something that I find acceptable or not. I wield all the power ultimately because I got the remote control. Anything that I'm watching, if I decide I don't want to watch it anymore, if it's offended my tender sensibilities, I can turn it off at a fucking any instant. I can be done with it. I can resell the fucking disc to Bull Moose if it offended me so greatly. Okay? And I think that adults should be at liberty to decide whether or not they want to watch the Matinee Idol. I know blackface is bad. I'm not out here supporting it. I'm not saying it's good. It was never good. It was never okay. But people did the shit, and people made movies where they did the shit, and Frank Capra directed a movie where they did the shit. I don't know, man. I'm not about to boycott Sony because they released a movie from 1928 because the main character is a blackface actor. I mean, I'm just not going to throw a brick through the window over that shit. Of course, the brain dead rebuttal is to accuse me of being a little too willing to buy and watch and possibly masturbate to a film featuring blackface, with the heavy implication that I endorse such a thing. Although I've just said that I don't endorse it, so anybody with that rebuttal, go fuck yourself. It's a dull misdirect that does not address why certain works should be purged in later decades. Telling me that I like blackface a little too much, or I'm defending blackface a little too hard, does not answer the question of why should the Matinee Idol not be accessible to audiences in 2024. It doesn't. I'm an asshole. I know I'm an asshole. I've lived with me for longer than I care to mention publicly on the internet, okay? I know I'm a piece of shit. You got to tell me why the matinee idol shouldn't be bought or sold by anybody, okay? Of course, a film from 1928 doesn't represent our 2024 moral stance on racial caricature, but Justin Trudeau is Prime Minister of Canada and he wore dark minority face way more recently than 1928. I'm just saying, okay? My willingness to consume media that represents a full and complete film history doesn't mean that I'm going to dress as Wesley Snipes from Demolition Man next Halloween, although I am. Look, I was a little surprised when I researched how many times the N word appeared in Huckleberry Finn. The answer is it's 219 times. Holy shit. That was way higher than I thought it was going to be when I asked ChatGPT how many N words were in Huckleberry Finn. But look, the total word count of Huckleberry Finn is about 108,000 words, also according to ChatGPT, which means the N word represents about 0.2% of the word count of Huckleberry Finn. So 0.2% of the words in all of Huckleberry Finn are the N word. Just in case you ever find yourself playing Trivial Pursuit, the racial slur edition, I would also like to take this moment to extend my heartfelt thanks to Trivial Pursuit, the racial slur edition, for sponsoring this video. Thanks, guys. You're the best. At the end of the day, you don't have to watch the Matinee Idol. You don't have to read Huckleberry Finn. You don't have to even like the fact that they exist in the world. You can hate Huckleberry Finn every day for the rest of your life. Nothing's stopping you. You're a big boy too. You can do whatever the fuck you want. I'm not coming to your house to force read you Huckleberry Finn. And I don't plan on watching Riddick, butt squeezing censorship aside. Even if full butt squeeze was still in the movie, I ain't watching that shit. I didn't watch it in 2013, and I didn't wait 11 years just to turn around and fucking watch that shit like some kind of Vin Diesel simp. I ain't doing it. So leaving the Matinee Idol out of a box set isn't exactly like a book burning, okay? It's not the same thing. Maybe roughly analogous, but it's not the same thing. Although I will say it does make it a little bit harder to watch the Matinee Idol. Although I did upload a full version of the film to my Patreon for anybody who is curious. You want to watch the Matinee Idol and see how terrible and offensive it is. Hey, it's on my Patreon for you. I love you people. The idea that Sony should quietly shelve an obscure old film that is well outside of the public zeitgeist, or that a director should remove a butt squeeze of dubious consent from a film, does imply at least a small degree of moral authority for those entities, even if their decisions are rational ones under the present day circumstances. I don't think Toohey was crazy for removing the butt squeeze. It was a rational decision. It was just shitty. At the end of the day, changes are made to films without the consent of fans, right? Like, he didn't consult us. He's the guy in charge. He removed the fucking butt squeeze. The fans, the decision that we have to make as fans is like whether or not we want to support that practice of post-hoc censorship. Is that something that we're going to put up with? Will we buy Riddick anyway and give Shout Factory the money? Or do we say, no, fuck it, give me the butt squeeze back, and until you do, I'm keeping my $37. Anytime that I am not offered the opportunity to also view a version of the work as it was prior to the alterations made, I can't support the practice, right? Like I said before, my position is that you got to give me the original work if you're going to make any changes. Otherwise, you're not going to get my money. Even if I agree the butt squeeze isn't necessary to the film, it's a movie with a fictional character that tells a fake story about that character. Popeye Doyle, played by Gene Hackman, is not supposed to be an angel in the French Connection, okay? That's why his character originally said the N-word. That doesn't make Gene Hackman or William Friedkin bigots. At most, it means that the character of Popeye Doyle is bigoted, which for better or worse is meant to serve the story that's being told, right? Like characters are allowed to be bad guys still, right? It should be up to the audience to decide for themselves if that artistic choice works for them or not. Do you like the fact that Popeye Doyle is maybe not a perfect hero? He says some words that aren't great. He has some bigoted attitudes that you might not agree with in 2024. Isn't art allowed to challenge us sometimes? I thought that was the whole fucking point. Can we not appreciate Huckleberry Finn for being both a reflection of its period as well as showing us how successful society has been in vastly reducing casual racism over the past 140 or so years? If we accept that the language in Huck Finn is an accurate representation of its time, then shouldn't we be at least a little happy that it clearly demonstrates, by contrast, how much better the average work of fiction is doing? Maybe outside of Django Unchained, right? Because there's a lot of M-bombs in that one. 110, 110, 112. I looked it up. This would be great. I hope the next version of Django Unchained has all of the N words removed. That would really show that racist Tarantino and DiCaprio a thing or two. Fucking guys. I mean, there's the perfect example. Django Unchained is a perfect example. Leonardo DiCaprio plays a character that we can unanimously agree is evil, right? He's quite racist. He's a big piece of shit, which only makes his death all the more satisfying for us as the viewer. And that's coming from me as a whitey. I saw that movie Django Unchained in a theater in Atlanta. And me and my buddy Ross went to see it. We were the only two white dudes in that whole fucking theater. Let me tell you how uncomfortable that fucking viewing experience was. Holy shit, I was like sinking down on my seat. I was like holding the popcorn up. Wow. Watching Django Unchained as the only white dude in the theater in Atlanta. Holy fuck. I mean, is it okay for Leonardo DiCaprio to say the N-word dozens of times because he's the bad guy in the film? And we got to edit Gene Hackman's dialogue because in French Connection, his character is the protagonist. Like we've never had a complex anti-hero before. I mean, I think Tony Soprano was pretty racist. Should HBO remove certain episodes where Tony behaves in a misogynistic way? That would be like half of them at least, or uses Italian versions of racial slurs like Moulignan. I mean, there's at least one episode where he does drop that one. And should we take those out? I mean, should we remove whole episodes of The Sopranos because Tony's attitude towards Meadows' black boyfriend is so shitty? I mean, I think they were put in there for a reason. It's to show us that Tony's not a fucking good guy. Because companies or directors deciding what content is not appropriate for me, an adult viewer, it's insulting. Honestly, I'll get right down to it. That's why people get so upset about it. In addition to that, the hypocrisy is also insulting. I mentioned instances where some shit was edited, like the French Connection. They got to pull out an N word, but Tony Soprano, he doesn't say the N word, but he does say some other words that are maybe not quite as, kick to the dick as the N word, but it's still, you really shouldn't talk like that. And if you do, he reveals some very bigoted attitudes, okay? When some shit is removed and other shit is left in, it makes the whole thing seem like some weak gesture, a posturing at virtue while still trying to cash in wherever possible, right? Did David Twohy genuinely regret making the Riddick character grabs Katie Sackhoff's character's voluptuous behind over the past decade? I mean, did he spend every year since 2013 wishing he hadn't put that in? Or did he remove that shot because he feared that people would judge him negatively for having the butt squeeze in the movie? Was Toohey following his moral compass, or was he trying to revise the film to avoid criticism? Because my position is also that what's done is done. Gene Hackman said the N word in character as Popeye Doyle. It happened. No judgment. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's bad. It happened. It's a thing that happened. We can agree. It's part of the historical record. Mark Twain's various characters said the N word 219 times. Wow. Over the course of Huckleberry Finn. And Django Unchained features 110 uses of the N word, many by white characters portrayed by white actors. These are simple facts. Again, I'm not thumbs up or thumbs down on any of these instances of bad language. It's just, it happened, right? We can all agree that it took place. I do not believe that it would be right to revel in these facts, nor should we hold up these characters as examples for our own racial attitudes. My white ass didn't go see Django Unchained and think, I want to be like Leo. Like, that's the racial attitude that I need to walk away with. I don't think any white guy watches fucking Django and thinks, well, this is obviously what I should aspire to. Fictional characters saying N words or grabbing butts without permission doesn't make those things okay. I shouldn't have to tell you that. You're not my child, okay? In the real world, we don't do those things. But my whole point is that what's done is done, and let it stand for no other reason that we can learn from it, right? Like, when characters behave badly, that can be a good example of like what not to do, okay? Who really wants to turn out like Tony Soprano if you've seen The Sopranos? The idea that it's a wonderful experience is pretty well dispelled over the course of that series. We can learn from Mark Twain. We can learn from The Matinee Idol about the past. You delete Matinee Idol and enough other films like that. I mean, does anybody know what blackface is or even look like in a couple of generations? How do we know that it was so awful? I think you got to learn from the bad stuff too. You can't just forget about, oh yeah, they had this thing called the N-word, but don't worry about it. No one said it in 1,000 years, but because we erased it from all historical. It's a good thing we got that out of the French Connection, because all these young kids, all these impressionable youths at 12 and 13 years old were watching a movie from the early 70s directed by William Friedkin, okay? And they were learning how to say the N-word from Gene Hackman. Nice work, okay? We can learn from Riddick that no matter how much we agree that, good Lord, look at her booty, Katie Sackhoff was circa 2013. It is not right to touch people without their permission. Look, enjoying a movie where the main character has flaws doesn't make you flawed. It doesn't make you a bad person. Watching a century-old silent film that contains blackface doesn't make you a bad person, especially if you watch it on my Patreon. Sending your kindergartner into school on Halloween dressed like this would probably make you a bad person. Reading Huckleberry Finn doesn't make you a bad person. Reading Huckleberry Finn at Morehouse College probably makes you a bad person, and you're going to get shot. I'm from Atlanta. You're going to get shot if you do that shit. So don't do that shit. So I'm just saying, watch what you want to watch, and I'm not going to judge you for it. Unless you watch The Christmas Shoes, that movie is an irredeemable piece of shit, and so is anybody who likes that movie. Holla, bitches. Deuces.